start with Ben. Ben, how are you, bro?
Living the dream.
Oh, let's go. I love that. Living the dream. What is the dream?
I think waking up with breath in your lungs. That's
Hey.
that's that's my litmus test. As long as that happens, I'm good to
Or the dream. Hey, we're 30 seconds in, we're already preaching. Let's go.
go.
Ben, tell us a little bit about who you are. Like, where are you from? What do you do?
Yeah, man. I grew up in New England. I'm a New England native. I was born in Chicago, but got swiftly pulled up and moved to New Hampshire, just due to being the son of a preacher.
Mhm.
We took over a church in New Hampshire back in 2002, and we've just been up here ever since. So I kind of found a love for music at a very early age.
Mhm.
Probably about 3 or 4 years old. I started playing the drums and singing, and just kind of realized that that's what I wanted to do with my life from that time moving forward. And I've just been pursuing it ever since, and hopefully remaining where I should be with God all the while. So
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, you went from Midwest to East Coast. How old were you?
I was about 2 when we moved
Okay,
to New
cool.
Hampshire. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I've never been to the East Coast. I've always wanted to. I'm a Yankees fan, so I'm kind of a fake fan because I've never
Yeah.
been actually to New York, but I've seen them play like 16 times if that counts. But
Okay. All right.
so you said that is your dad still a pastor preacher?
He is, yeah. So
Yeah.
our church closed in 2019.
Hmm.
It just basically there's a lot of issues with the elders and whatever. And my dad's pastor ended up just saying, "Bro, I care way more about your heart and your family than I do your ministry. Because if your heart and your spirit and your soul isn't where it needs to be, the ministry isn't gonna flourish." So he kind of gave him the green light to close down the doors of the church. So we did that, and it's kind of funny. It happened like right before COVID hit.
Right.
So it was very interesting, and we didn't even plan on that. It was like announced in December, and then all of a sudden, it's like every church started closing its doors and whatever.
Yeah.
So we started having a home church just in our house with who was left of our congregation.
Mhm.
And in that time, my parents kind of went around searching for places for those people to find a new home, a new
Mhm.
church. Um, so I had formally made a connection with the church about 40 minutes north, right on Lake Winnipesaukee,
Mhm.
back in 2017. I led worship for a big Fourth of July thing that they had, and I became really connected with their youth. At the time, I was 17, 18,
Yeah.
and it was kind of strange because every time I came home from hanging out with them, I told my parents, I said, I feel oddly connected with them.
Mm.
Uh, and they're like, well, they're your brothers. And this is before our church had closed. And they're like, you don't have to go to church with them to be friends and family with them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, it feels deeper than that. I don't know what it is. So when our church closed, I went to their Christmas party,
Mm.
and I was there watching it was a slideshow of the past year's events of 2019. And I was in the slideshow more than the pastors did.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there like, and I started crying. I'm like, what is going on right now? And God just very simply said, this is your home. And I
Mm.
was like, okay. So I kind of came home and I told my parents, I said, I know where I'm going to church. Whether or not you come with me, that's totally up to you and God. But they followed shortly after that summer. And we
Mm.
got locked into that church. My dad's now a preacher there. So
Wow, that's
it,
incredible.
yeah, it's been a wild journey, man, but there's so much happening. It's just
Yeah.
so blatantly the hand of God. So we're just
Mhm.
excited, where we're at.
Yeah, well, that's incredible. And I kind of came from the polar opposite. My family was not in the church at all, and I got saved at 15. And really, my family is still following as I go.
Yeah.
And with you, like with that, how did all that go? Like, I'm sure that there was always seasons of having like being the pastor's kid and all that. Like, did you stay true to your faith? Was there a time where you left the faith? How did all that work?
Yeah, I would say not once in my life did I not believe that God existed.
Hmm.
And I always loved him and I always had a heart for him, but my lifestyle didn't always follow suit.
Yeah.
So there was a large chunk of my life where I was just kind of going through the motions, and I was even serving at church at that time
Mm.
in ministry, and yet, that was just a forced Sunday, and I
Right.
would church and just go do my thing. And there was a lot of a hurt that came out of that because I was still loud about being a Christian,
Mm.
but that was really all I was. And it kind of, I like to compare it to what Paul speaks about in if I have not love, I'm nothing but a clanging cymbal.
Yeah.
Uh, that's kind of what I was. That's quite literally what I was, where I was like preaching Jesus, like, oh yeah, but I wasn't living it. And
Mm.
so all it did was hurt a lot of people. And I fell into this just extremely selfish lifestyle of, well, I think I'm good because I hadn't discovered God for myself. I only knew God for what my parents told me he was. And so I just kind of lived off that. I lived off
Yeah.
their anointing,
Right.
and thought that I could get by with it. And I knew the whole time, I knew that, this isn't right. That I've
Hmm.
been called to such greater things than what I'm doing right now. But I didn't care. I truly did not care.
Hey.
It's so weird to look back at, like,
Yeah.
what was I doing? And again, it hurt a lot of people. And I think there are people that are still hurt by who I was and the decisions I made
Mm.
in that time of my life. Um,
Yeah.
but it all kind of, I would say, flipped around in 2020 when COVID hit,
Hmm.
and I lost everything. I mean, because my life at that point was dependent on being on the road and doing shows and
Hmm.
leading worship. And so it was like within a week, I lost four major festivals and two major tours, and just every weekend in between. And it all just dissipated.
Yeah.
And I remember driving home, and I was mad. I was
Yeah.
mad at God. Like, and I tell people, like, I don't know about you guys, but there are times where I forget who he is. And
Hmm.
I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what's
Right.
wrong? Like, what do you, it's kind of that moment of just where your life has relied so much on what you can do and not him.
Mm.
So I was so frustrated. I was so angry. And it was beyond losing a paycheck. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
beyond like losing my career. It was like, this is what I was created to do. Like, this is my
Hmm.
destiny. And it just got stripped away. And God slapped me across the face, man, in that moment. And he's like, bro, what? And I
Yeah.
remember I was driving home, and I was listening to Have My Heart by Elevation,
Yeah.
and I'm just crying out to God. I'm like, what's happening right now? What do you gave me all of these things only to have them stripped away? And
Mm.
I'm sitting here like, what is he saying right now? And he said, Ben, I just want your heart. That's it.
Wow.
And that was like the first time in my life that I had heard that from him.
Hmm.
I lived my entire life thinking that I could be and do what he called me to do, and that would kind of gain me his respect and his love. And this is the first time where he's like, hey, all those things that the world places you on a pedestal for, all those things that people treat you differently because.
I really appreciate you talking about just the heart. And I was just talking to a guy from the Seattle Seahawks, so way different type of um, world, but still is a believer in the same thing, man. Like, he could have all these things, but if at the end of the day, if he misses what God actually wants, which is his heart, it was all not even worth it, because we have platforms and we have jobs and we have all this stuff. And even like our abilities is just worship. Like, it's funny to think about him. Like, he's a tight end for the Seattle Seahawks. He's worshiping God
Yeah,
through his hands. Our work is our worship.
yeah.
And for you, man, like what kind of moved that needle for you? I mean, I'm interested. I play a little guitar, not anything to be like dangerous or whatever, but like going from just in liking to sing or liking to play a guitar or drums, like you said, to saying, okay, I think I might be able to do this for a living.
Yeah. It was at a Jeremy Camp concert.
Mm. Yeah.
I was about, I think I was 10 years old, and I didn't see the lights and I didn't hear great music. I saw the impact of what he was doing
Mm.
on the people that were there that night. And I turned to my mom and I said, "This is what I want to do."
Yeah.
And she was like, "What? You know, be a rock star? What do you?" I said, "No, I want to impact people with music. You know, I really do." And so again, I was about 10 at that time.
Yeah.
So it was a long road until I was actually doing that for a living, full
Mhm.
time. But that was the moment I remember just very, very vividly that I actually decided this is the path I want to take.
Sitting there and I was thinking about just watching the crowd worship, and the preacher was engaging with the crowd. And I just remember looking at my youth pastor and having no concept, no idea what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to make a difference no
Yeah.
matter what. I just wanted to be a part. I didn't care if I was stacking chairs or if I was the preacher. I remember the first time even preaching, and I was like, I don't even know if this is it. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I do know that I'm called to be a part of whatever God's doing.
Yeah.
And honestly, man, it's been like 7 years of just saying yes and just figuring it out and trying to learn how to lead people. And one day you're at dinner with a couple who's talking about a divorce, and the next day you're preaching at a conference. Like there's just like this constant, it doesn't matter what it is, but I do know God is right in the middle of people who just want to say yes and be available. And then everybody wants this platform thing, and I think it comes through just availability and us wanting to be a part of what God's doing. We're just partnering with whatever he's doing. Like,
Correct.
I'm sure if tomorrow he wakes you up in the middle of the night and goes, "Hey, Ben, I want you to do whatever," you'd go, "Yes, send me."
Yeah.
And really, like, for you, man, what does the next couple of years look like for you? Like, what do you feel like God's stirring in your heart of what you feel called to do?
I kind of am still in the middle of but this encounter that began kind of December-ish, January, of God just calling me to the college campuses.
Mm,
And I could delve into it. It's the whole thing is full of just crazy, crazy miracle signs and wonders, like
yeah.
stuff that, one day of this encounter is enough for people to go, "Are you serious? Like
Mhm.
that happened?" But it's been just intense. But God has been very, very clear, and the only thing I know at this time is that I'm to minister at college campuses. I see it. There's a lot that's been revealed, and most of it pertaining to just an outpouring of God, just a move of God. I think we're on the edge of an awakening
Mhm.
in this nation, but there's things that need to happen beforehand. And it's just this heavenly blueprint of before there's an awakening, there must be a revival. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, but before there's a revival, there must be reformation. And so we're kind of like navigating that area right now within the church,
Mhm.
within just the hearts of the saints. But yeah, God's just really called me to minister in college campuses and reach that uh, area of people, because it's the next generation, and these kids are so lost. They don't have truth, they don't have stability, and if there's one thing that I know that contains truth and stability, it's God and His
Mm.
gospel,
Yeah.
and Jesus and His love.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of just where we're focusing on. He has us in a place now of just waiting and praying. Fervent prayer is so important.
Yeah.
uh, so we don't really, people ask me like, when, people that have been keeping up with it, when and what does it look like, and I'm like, I have no clue, I don't know any of
Right.
that. But that's purposeful. God has been very intentional. It's like a Gideon encounter
Mhm.
where he's like, "All right, get rid of half your men," and it's like, "Wait, what? What are you talking
Right.
about?" And like up until the moment the Midianites flee their camp, Gideon didn't know what was going on. Like he
Hmm.
had no clue. He just said yes, constantly said yes.
Yeah.
And, that's kind of what I compare it to. I find myself in this place of just constantly saying yes, constantly surrendering and allowing God to do the work.
Mm.
Because in the end, he gets all the glory for it. And that's
Yeah.
what he wants,
100%. Yeah, man, that's so good. And I mean, even like looking at maybe a viewer or a listener is like 16 and thinks about, I want to do something big for God. Well, you know what? The best, in my opinion, then I'm going to ask you, the best thing you can do if you feel called to do something big for God is to do something little, because there's no measurement. God doesn't have a measurement scale of big and little. He just looks at your yes or no. It's like, yes, God. So that's my opinion. If you want to do something big, do something little. And in our finite brains, stack chairs, bring your pastor coffee, take a friend out to dinner and tell them you love them.
Yeah.
What would you say to a younger viewer?
I would say be careful what you pray for in
Yeah.
a sense of if if you really want that, if you really want to do something big, if you really want to see millions of people come to Christ, you better be willing to do that. and
Yeah.
and that's a daily willingness. There's a lot of my life was spent seeing that, and I truly believe God wants to use me to do big things, but he's broken me in order to do so.
Yep.
And it's a daily thing. And if you're not willing to surrender, as kind of along the same vein as what you were saying, if you're not willing to surrender the little things daily, then
Hmm.
what makes you think God's going to trust you with the big things? And so
Yeah.
if you're not living a lifestyle that aligns with this vision that you might have, and even if it's a good one, it might not be God. So it's very
Right.
careful. It's a very, interesting place to navigate. Okay, just because this would glorify God, does that mean it's him? You
Hmm.
know? But yeah, I would say just if you're gonna pray big prayers, just be prepared for it, man.
Right.
It's
Buckle
like
up.
praying for patience. Like,
Yeah.
okay, you want to pray for patience, be my guest, but understand what comes with that.
Right.
The same goes for doing big things for the kingdom.
Hmm.
Which you're right, there's no such thing. There really isn't. I've seen God use the smallest of things way more than what we see as the big things. And so, just at the end of the day, our only job is to just serve Him.
Yeah.
Surrender. It's a daily yes. It's a daily, I die to self, and I'm
Hmm.
gonna allow you to do what you want through me. And that's really where He gets all the glory. And in the end, if we do that, we get to heaven and we look back and go, I'm happy that I lived the life that I did, and I said yes, and I let God use me, no matter how big or how small.
Hmm. Yeah. In Exodus 4, God and Moses in the burning bush, and really what happens is God uses what was in his hand. Moses had a staff, and there's this long journey through Exodus that we see. And it's literally that question that the viewer could feel like God speaks to them, like, what did you do with what you had? So it might be 4 Instagram followers, or it might be 10 businesses. You had it in your hand, and it's our responsibility to partner with God and steward that.
Yeah.
And even like that, like for you, man, like I'm sure that you have to be disciplined. One of my best friends is a music producer. And you know how everybody in America is a music producer, and they say that, and you're like, yeah, sure you are, man. Like you got
Yeah.
4 viewers on Spotify, like
Uh-huh.
he's like an actual producer, yeah, a lot. Yeah, really great. Fire music, I'll send it over to you. But like he has to produce a lot. Like there's a lot of things he has to do every day. Like what does your daily routine or daily disciplines look like?
Yeah, man. I've been given the privilege of being full time with this, and it's a place I always wanted to get to, but didn't really know I was going to this early on.
Mm.
But that allowed me. I'd say the first like 7-8 months of being full time was very just. I was enjoying not having to work,
Yeah,
because
right.
I did work, but it was like my passion, so it was very different. But there came a time, and this was about last year in October, where I wanted to come out with 2 albums this year.
Mhm.
And my manager's like, bro, you got to move out of your bedroom and like have a studio to go to, a place
Yeah.
to separate life and work. And so I did. I took this shed in our backyard, and just basically completely renovated it and made it a livable space. And making a studio separate from where I was doing life
Hmm.
allowed me to then enter into a place of serious work.
Yeah.
Uh, and so now that's what I do. And my work day is a little different than most, in a sense where I don't get up till 10 or 11, but
Hmm.
I don't go to bed till 2 or 3 because
Right.
my creative juices don't start flowing till about 11 o'clock at night.
Hmm.
So normally, in the daytime, I'm running around doing meetings, running errands, kind of preparing myself. And then once night falls, I write whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Uh, and a lot of that consists of too just knowing that loads of work doesn't equal best work,
Mhm.
So to me, it came where I'm doing my best work if I'm only actually working on music 2 or 3 days a week
Yeah.
and leaving space for just going on prayer walks or hanging out with friends. Because if
Hmm.
I'm busting my butt, I'm not going to love what I'm doing, and I'm
Yeah.
not going to give it my best. So I tell people all the time, if you're looking to create in a full-time way, the most important aspect of it is self-awareness. It's just
Hmm.
knowing how you work, who you are, and what you need in order to be the most productive and successful.
Yeah.
So I tell people my schedule, to answer your question, is all over the place, but that's
Hey,
how I need it to be,
right.
be productive.
My last question. This is probably the most important. Well, no, no, no. I have two. Are you a coffee guy, and do you actually like the Patriots because you lived over there?
I am a coffee guy.
Okay.
Daily, I need
Mm.
lots of it to function.
Yep.
It's probably a bad thing.
Nope.
And,
Great.
and yes, a big New England fan, Celtics, Red Sox, Patriots.
Okay.
I've never been a huge sports guy,
Yeah.
but I do love and have passion for my teams. I've slowly become a Bucks fan just because Tom
Mm.
Brady moved them.
You know what? I'm not being judgmental. I'm a big coffee guy every single day, and not a Patriots guy because I'm not from over there. But I do like the Yankees, so I'm a hypocrite. It is what it is. But if you don't like Tom Brady, you shouldn't listen to this YouTube video at all, and we can't be friends. He's the GOAT. It's not a question. We can fight someday about the Red Sox Yankees thing, but it's okay. We're still friends. But man, thank you so much for being on. I appreciate it. I want to value your time, and I just appreciate your wisdom. I'm sure you and I could sit here probably for like 6 hours and just talk about life and ministry and leadership. And that's what I
Yeah,
appreciate about you is you're generous, generous with your wisdom and time. And you're so much more than what you do or what you produce. God's pleased with you and proud of you. And dude, it's just the beginning.
amen, amen. Appreciate you, bro. Seriously.